Now we should be starting.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Welcome back to a very special Saturday night episode of Wisco Fanatics. We are only going to be discussing the firing of head coach Mike Budenholzer and some potential replacements. We each have a top three list, and we also have three attributes that we would like in a potential replacement to lead this team to another title in the Giannis era. So I have three guys that their names are getting thrown around a lot, and rightfully so. I have some guys that have been around the league for a long time. A guy who's very familiar with our roster, and Tyler tells me that he has three guys that I would not even think about, and I am so excited. See, the problem is Tyler knows my three. I already gave my three out to him. I have no idea what's on his list, so I'm going to be shocked, surprised, and probably pleased, just like everybody else who watches this. So yeah, I say let's get started. Do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first? Do you want to introduce
So,
yourself? How are we doing this?
a couple things that I want to do before we start throwing names out there.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing I want to do is read the comments of John Horst, who was asked by Jim Osworthy from the Journal Sentinel about what they're looking for in a head coach. So I want to read those things first, just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of give a general idea of exactly what the Bucks are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start with that. Then after that, I think we should do our attributes first because
Okay.
that's how I quote unquote graded the coaching candidates that I looked at. And I
Mm-hmm.
looked at a lot. Now, listen, before we get started, I'm going to say I may not be an expert. I'm not working for ESPN and I'm just, running a sports show podcast. Well, these are my notes.
It's a lot of notes. It's a lot of notes.
That is 7 pages of notes. So again, I may not be on ESPN, but I put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with John Horst's quotes on what they're looking for in a new coach. He was asked first. First thing he said was culture. He said the candidate doesn't necessarily need NBA head coaching experience or championship experience. He said they're going to, quote, evaluate all options. He did not rule out anyone from the Budenholzer or Popovich coaching tree, which would include Charles Lee, Becky Hammon, James Borrego, and more.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to, quote, look at a very large candidate pool. I looked at 14 coaches, potential coaches. I looked at 14, so I ended up with 7 pages of notes.
Mm-hmm.
I let Jake pick the 3 that he wanted, and I looked at all the other ones that I could come up with.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at 14 potential options. So when John Horst says he's looking at a very wide pool, so did I. He said character matters massively,
Mm-hmm.
which to me rules out somebody, but I'll leave that alone. He said it's more important to make the right decision than to make a decision quickly. He said the players will have a lot of input. He said, quote, their opinion matters to me. It's something I trust and value.
As you should, I think.
Right. So just real quick recap. Culture doesn't need NBA head coaching or championship experience. They're going to evaluate all options. Didn't rule anybody out from Budenholzer or Popovich trees. Large candidate pool. Character matters. More important to make the right decision than a fast decision.
Mm-hmm.
Players will have input because their opinion matters to him. So that's what John Horst said he's looking for. So with that being said, give me your attributes that you want in a potential head coach replacement.
So, my 3 keys are almost from the John Horst quotes. So, my first one I have is gets the respect of the locker room because that's a big thing, right?
Yep.
This is a
That's on my
players'
list as well.
league.
Yep.
Players win games. I've said that for years. Yes, coaching can help. I'm not saying that coaching is not important. When to call timeouts, when to make adjustments. I understand all that X's and O's, but players win games. So having a guy that has the respect of the locker room is really, really big thing. And I love that Horst is going to take the opinions of the players. You need to have guys like Drew and Giannis, giving their opinions on
Yep.
who they want to lead them, right?
Yep. I would throw Wes Matthews in there too. I mean, he's a guy who's been in the NBA for 15 years.
He's
Chris has been in the
going to
league
be
for
an
like 12
assistant
years.
coach, maybe.
I would love Wesley Matthews on the coaching staff.
Yeah, he's a great locker room guy. He's been in the league forever, like you've said. So I mean,
he spent 3/4 of the year coaching Marjon Beauchamp.
Yeah, pretty much. What's up, Simon? My next one is more aggressive defense and adjust to the other team's play style. And that is a big one for this Milwaukee Bucks fan base, for the Milwaukee Bucks team.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, yes, we've learned so much about the drop defense, and I do think that it is a very effective defense in certain situations, just not every single situation, right? Steve, stick around, buddy.
You're getting ahead of Jake.
Some pretty good names there. So a guy that can adjust, when a Jimmy Butler is taking advantage of that drop defense and getting to that 8 to 10 foot range and just absolutely murdering us while we're going over the screens, having a guy push up, and making it a little bit tougher. I think that's something that could be key. And my last one goes with the culture. Keep the fun. Obviously, winning makes things a little bit easier to enjoy and have fun, but keeping the fun, keeping it light, having the respect of the locker room, and understanding the X's and O's of things, I think those are all three big ones. Keeping the fun is a really big one that people kind of scoff at. We talked about it during Packer season when LaFleur said it, but it's a big thing mindset-wise. So keeping the fun is really important.
So I cheated because I put like a bonus one on mine, but it's for a reason, because it's something that I've done for years now. But my three, number one is someone adaptable and fluid in game. We talked about it during the championship run that we thought Budenholzer did a good job of going game to game adjustments, but not in game adjustments. And that's obviously what became, at the forefront of the Miami Heat series.
True.
Number two, you nailed it already. I want a guy who can earn respect of players and can culture the guys to keep the championship culture.
Yeah.
And then number three, I wanted somebody with a fundamental defensive philosophy and offensive creativity. So those are my three attributes that I'm looking for. Now, my bonus one is someone who is strong in all areas of fundamental failures. Now, if you're watching the show and you've never seen or heard me talk about fundamental failures, they are three aspects that I believe are the most key fundamentals of basketball, which are boxing out, making free throws, and taking care of the ball. So I tracked points off turnovers, second chance points, and missed free throws, added them all together into what I called fundamental failure points. So I looked at candidates who were strong, whose teams were strong rebounders, didn't turn the ball over, and made their free throws. So that being said, how do you want to do it? Do you want to go 3-1? You just want to start rattling them off? You want to go number one, number three?
I think I'm going to go 3-1. I think I'm going to go with my least favorite, and then I will go with my number one guy.
Okay.
So do you want me to start at number three?
You might as well, because two of your guys are already in the comment section. Steve already touched on two of them, so you might as well start with one of those two, I guess.
He's ready. Well, my number three is Mark Jackson. I think Mark Jackson would be a phenomenal coach for this team. Now, one thing that does hurt him, in my opinion, is that as soon as they got rid of him, Golden State won the title. So that's kind of a knock on him, in my opinion. Not a big one, because he obviously took a bad Warriors team. The Warriors were horrible for a long time. Played bad defense, didn't have any offensive real philosophy. It was really just Monte Ellis being fast.
Yeah, and Steven Jackson.
And Stephen Curry was up and coming, but he had a lot of the ankle issues. So I like Mark Jackson because he played in the league for a long time. He was a first-round pick back in 1987 to the Knicks. Played in the NBA all the way until 2004, from 87 to 04. So he has a lot of NBA experience. He was the Warriors coach from 2011 to 2014. He averaged 9 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. So this guy understands the fluidity of an offensive game, right? He understands how to draw offensive plays up, but he's a defensive-minded guy. So when you said you want a guy who's defensive-minded, but, can draw up some plays on offense. I was like, that's the guy you're ruling out, in my opinion. I think what he did with the Warriors is really what I see is they were so bad on defense, dude. The year before that he came in there, they gave up almost 52% field goal percentage. That is awful, dude. That's awful. That's Pistons level awful. Not trying to throw shots, but that's true. So for him to come in a 2-year stretch, his first 2 years there, he got them down to almost 46%. Wallace wants Nick Nurse. I have wanted him before we even won the championship. And I would gladly listen to the reasons that you want him. If you wanted to put them in the comments and tell the reasons that you want him, I'll gladly listen to that. Tyler is very against it, and Tyler could give his opinions on that. Because if you haven't seen, he has 7,000 words written down. But my last thing about Mark Jackson is, like I said, he is a defensive-minded guy, and he had to do a lot of work with a bad team. So I think that if you have a defensive-minded team with a Mark Jackson with championship pedigree, I think Mark Jackson understands how to win and how to move around in this league. So I think he would be a good fit with this roster. Now, I am going to touch base on some things that are not good about Mark Jackson. Just real quick here, not going to say a lot. There was rumors that there was religious stuff going on and homophobia going on over there. And apparently, it's kind of hearsay. It's like one of those things that we say, in the media, it's clickbait, in my opinion, because there really is it's he said, she said kind of deal. And they were saying that he was openly, complaining about 2 staff members who were gay. And it's like, okay, if that's true, it's a bad look for him. I won't lie. But I don't think ESPN would have hired him immediately off the spot if that was true. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure they did their due diligence and they did their research. So I'm just going to say this. I think he'd be fantastic with us. Like I said, he knows how to work around the league, and he's a tough-nosed guy. And I think that the Bucks could use some toughness.
Sean just brought up a point. Thoughts on Ty Lue leaving the toxic Clippers and joining the Bucks? It is possible, and actually Adrian Wojnarowski just was on, I don't remember what show he was on. He was on a show, I think it was something on ESPN, and they were asking him about who replaces Budenholzer. And one of the things that he said was that there could be a candidate that is still currently coaching. So he's hinting at, if a coach that's currently in the playoffs were to lose their job, they could be a potential candidate. The 2 most prominent ones that popped up were Tyronn Lue and Monty Williams in Phoenix.
Really? I don't know how I feel about Monty Williams. I think he's a great person. I don't know if I think he's a great coach, but I know Ty Lue knows his shit, man. I know that for a fact.
So if that ends up being the case, and there's rumors that they're being interested or anything like that, Sean said there's leaks that this has been purposely making the Clippers fail, and Kawhi has been faking injuries because of the toxicity.
What?
That would be crazy if it was true. I'd have to look into it. Like, I can't speak, if that's something that I believe is true or not, because I haven't done any research on it. But if there, if any coaches get fired, and there's rumors that the Bucks are interested in any of the coaches that get fired, obviously that would be something where maybe on a regular Wednesday show we bring that up.
Yeah.
And we can maybe expand on some of those candidates. If for some reason Denver blows their lead and gets gentlemen swept out of the playoffs, and the Nuggets are like, all right, peace, Mike Malone. Obviously that would be an option that I would certainly be interested in.
Yeah,
I don't see Miami firing Eric Spoelstra because he's been there for a decade and a half. But I mean, if he did,
bro, Eric Spoelstra with Giannis would be illegal.
I will say one of the candidates that I've seen brought up a lot is Chris Quinn. He's one of Spoelstra's main assistants. Mm-hmm. He just missed the cut for my top 3, but he is basically a Spoelstra clone. If you listen to things that Udonis Haslem says, Udonis Haslem said when you listen to Quinny, you're hearing Spo with the same message. Haslem said he has the knowledge, the experience, the relationship with the players. He has everything covered when you talk about checking the boxes to have the ability to be a successful head coach. So if the Bucks went Chris Quinn, you're essentially getting an Eric Spoelstra clone. Wallace said I was in awe of the adjustments he made against us after we went up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Adjustments are the main thing that Bud struggled with, especially in-game adjustments, which we agreed. Nurse is a master at it. Also, his defense against the three is something I have been envious of, and that has always been an Achilles heel of Bud's, even the year we won the championship. Those are just two of the main reasons I want Nurse. So I will say, to Budenholzer's credit, the Bucks did do a much better job of defending the three-point line in 2022-2023. They went from 18th in the NBA last season to 9th in the NBA this year. So the Bucks did improve defensively against the three. They also improved at offensive rebounding. We do agree on the in-game adjustments. We talked about one of the first things when we were talking about attributes was getting better at in-game adjustments as opposed to just being good at game-to-game adjustments. I don't know. I'd go as far as to call Nick Nurse a master at in-game adjustments. I'd say overall, I think Nick Nurse is just too similar to Budenholzer for him to be a needle mover as a head coach. And when you get to character concerns, that to me is enough to be just completely off.
Yeah.
Sean said, my biggest thing is we need a coach that's happy to allow youth to succeed long term. Then you definitely don't want Nick Nurse. That's one of the main complaints, even from his own team president, was that their developing young players was just not there. And if you want a guy who's going to play the young players, definitely don't want Nick Nurse because he plays his starters like 38 minutes a game in the regular season.
Yeah.
Which to me is a concern if you're looking at guys like Giannis, Drew, Chris, Brooke that have, soreness or contusions, like strains, any of that those guys are going to be kind of burnt out towards the end of the season. Brad said, I thought Nurse kind of quit on his team down the stretch. Looking at it, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say he quit on his team. I do think he was kind of ready for the season to be over based on some of his comments. And, he was talking about his future before the season was actually over. And that kind of rubbed the president the wrong way. So, I don't know that I'd necessarily say he quit on his team, but I do think he was kind of thinking about the end before they were at the end.
I'm not going to lie. What you just said makes it sound like he did quit on his team, looking forward to the end of the season, talking about his future before the season was over. I'm going to have to agree with Brad on this one. I think he quit on them too. Not that they were ever going to look like a scary team or anything like that. I would have definitely took them in the first round.
In my mind, losing to the Chicago Bulls in the play-in game is unacceptable.
I agree with that.
That's 100% unacceptable. I don't care that DeMar DeRozan's the best player on the floor. If you're a great coach and you still have several good players on your team, there's no reason you should lose to the fucking Chicago Bulls.
They still have some players on that team from a championship team. So, they shouldn't be losing to the Bulls.
Sean said, I feel like we've wasted so much young talent. Look at Sandro and Nwora. I'm going to level with you. Those two guys are not needle movers at all. The fact that they've succeeded on terrible teams does not suggest to me that they would succeed on the Bucks. Obviously, Jordan Nwora had much more time at it than Sandro did, and Sandro went to a terrible team and was able to get some playing time. That's exactly what he wanted. That's exactly what his agent wanted for him. Jordan Nwora, he just never really got better defensively and never stopped turning the ball over.
Yeah, if he took more than 2 dribbles, it was going to be a shot or it was going to be a turnover. That's just kind of what I started to see.
And the thing was, we noticed at times this year, he had the athleticism to play defense. It just seemed like he didn't apply himself, to be honest. Sandro, I feel like if he had the time and development, he would have been a great backup to Giannis. I agree. I was super excited for Sandro's skill set, and I hope he succeeds with San Antonio. I just don't think him and his agent wanted to wait for him to have that time to develop behind Giannis, Brooke, Bobby. They wanted him to get playing time now, especially after how well he played in the Eurobasket tournament and in the Summer League team.
Brad, I 100% agree with that assessment.
Brad said Nwora had a hard time making the extra pass. That's definitely true. Don said Charles Lee or Vin Baker for locker room culture, veteran coaches. I do like Mark Jackson, not opposed to Nurse or Ty Lue, but my top choices. Wild card choices, maybe a college coach with proven defensive scheme or sets. I'm leaning towards a locker room guy first, veteran coach second. So, okay, Wallace said there's too many similarities. You said there's too many similarities between Bud and Nurse. Let's not forget we're not talking about two bums, and I would never say that. Would never say that Nurse is a bum coach. I just have concerns about him. They both did win a world championship, which they did. Bud isn't bad. It's just that Nurse is strong at the main weaknesses that Budenholzer had. And I don't know that I agree with that. I really don't.
Let me ask you a question. Are the Raptors winning that title if KD doesn't get hurt? Be real. Is anybody in the association beating that Warriors team with Curry and KD before KD gets hurt? No. Nobody. Not even LeBron fucking James at his peak was beating that team. And he was going nuts, bro. You think Kawhi by himself with a young Pascal Siakam, Siakam's nice now, but back then he wasn't the same Siakam that he is in 23. That nobody was beating that Warriors team, bro. Let's be real. Nick Nurse would be with 0 rings without injuries. Now, people could say that about the Bucks too, because Jeff Teague was just on a podcast. Oh, the Bucks. The Bucks did not think that the Nets were going to win. You're not in the NBA playoffs thinking that you're going to lose. That's not the mindset that you adapt yourself to, okay? That's trash. You're probably just mad that you didn't get more playing time because you came over. You thought your buddy Bud was going to give you more PT. It is what it is, okay? But the Bucks had just as good of a chance to beat the Nets as they did beating us. The Bucks were fucking good too. The Bucks are not some bums either.
Fantastic. It was stressful, but it was fantastic.
Yeah, but nobody beating that Warriors team. That's just – I'm just going to leave that like that. That's all I'm saying.
If we're looking at Budenholzer's main – I guess I'll say issues or weaknesses. One of the main complaints that I always saw was developing young talent, something that Nick Nurse does not succeed at. In-game adjustments, I'll give it to you. I'll give you that one. I don't necessarily agree or disagree, but I'll give you that one for the sake of the argument. Okay. And the other one being half-court offense, and that is something that Nick Nurse has struggled with. So I that's why offensive creativity is one of my attributes that I'm looking for in a new coach.
I'm going to respond. Luck and injuries are two different things. He literally blew out his Achilles comparing it to his toe being on the line because he wears a size 74. I can't help that his feet are long, okay? I know you can't help that he got hurt, but an injury, that's like a freak accident. Him stepping on the line, that's him not understanding where he was on the court.
That happens 2 or 3 times a game.
Yeah, so those are two completely different things. I think that him stepping on the line was luck. I think him getting injured was a freak accident.
Brad said Nurse reminds me of a one-hit wonder, and his resume is basically the same as Budenholzer's, just shorter. They both have 1 ring. They both have 1 Coach of the Year award, and they both have been fired within 3 years of winning a championship. Sorry, 4 years. Of winning a championship.
True.
One quick detour. Sean said thoughts on Middleton. I think he needs to move on and allow the team to improve. I'm going to go, this might sound like a hot take, but I'm going to say Chris Middleton was our best player in the Heat series.
I don't agree, but I don't know how I feel.
Would you agree that if you don't think he's the best, that he was second best?
Yeah, because Drew wasn't very consistent, and Brooke, he had some dominant games because of play calling and stuff, but and that's something that Bud messed up on, was going away from that pick and roll. We've talked about that, right, with Giannis. But I don't know. I would say, to answer this question, I think I could live with both sides. I can live with him coming back because I know what I'm getting. And if he doesn't come back, there's the extra money that we're going to get. Maybe we could fill up the roster with a couple extra veterans and maybe get an extra ball handler to help out Giannis and Drew. But I'm good with either, really. If he stays, then, like I said, I know what we're getting.
Right. And this is going to be interesting because what's going to happen is there's obviously Chris Middleton as a player option. So if he chooses to opt in or out, whether that happens before the coach happens will be very, very interesting. Because there are some coach candidates that I researched that their succeeding depends on their personnel. So if Chris Middleton opts out of his player option to become a unrestricted free agent before the Bucks make their coaching hire, I think that gives the Bucks just a little bit extra opportunity to help construct the roster to help whoever ends up being the new coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, in my opinion, I'm fine. Like, I agree with Jake. I'm fine with either way,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd kind of like to have it resolved before the head coach situation is resolved.
I agree.
All right. You ready for what I would describe as probably dark horse candidates for the head coaching position?
Yeah, give me your first one, buddy. Give me your
You
first
ready
one.
for well, I said you're right about Middleton. He played great offensively. I'm just hoping he had his knee back 100% because defensively, where he didn't play against Miami, Jimmy targeted him. But yes, I want Middleton back, and I'm fine with that assessment.
I am too.
I feel like for that contract value, we can get somebody better than Middleton.
See, that's where you're kind of playing the guessing game. You don't know who's going to be in or out of free agency. So
right,
and
you never know.
Chris
who's
isn't
get
a bad
overpaid
player.
either.
I'm not going to sit here and just dog Chris. He has some bad turnovers every once in a while. So does Giannis. Giannis missed 13 fucking free throws in that final game that we played.
Every offensive foul he commits is a turnover.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis has bad plays too. We just don't give him as much crap because he makes a lot of really, really good plays. Chris does too.
I kind of got on him a little bit in the one Toronto game, but that's one example.
But and Drew will have some really bad games where he's not shooting well, and he'll have a lot of turnovers,
he has some turnover games too.
And obviously, everybody's favorite player, Grayson Allen, could be hot and cold, where he's 3 of 15, he'll have 4 turnovers, and everybody's, oh my god, trade this bum. And then the next game he goes off for 25 and he makes 7 threes, and it's just like, so. Chris is not a bad player. He actually is a very, very smart player. I believe that he is our vocal leader on the court. That might sound crazy to some people, but Giannis is more of like a establish himself with his game, and Drew doesn't talk very much. So I was kind of thrown off seeing Drew talk shit with Jimmy. I was like, whoa, okay. Drew's really into this shit right now. So for me, I think that Chris is our leader on the court, vocal leader. He gets everybody set up. He's kind of like the safety, the middle linebacker, whatever you want to compare him to. But
I like that.
I wouldn't be upset with him back. And I'm not trying to dog him, but I do agree with what Wallace said. He was getting dog walked on defense, man. It was bad.
And the thing is you look at the team plus minus for the Miami series. Chris was actually a team high plus 2.6. Yeah. And I know it's not everything, and there's like way more metrics we can look at, but I'm just saying. I'm going to address 2 Cody comments. First one, he said, what are the possibility we hire Brook Lopez as back surgeon as the head coach?
Well,
if he can make as strong of a comeback with the Milwaukee Bucks as Brook Lopez did after his back surgery, the Bucks are going to just run off 7 championships in a row. As for your other one, Becky Hammon, she was on my list of candidates that I researched. She did just miss the cut of being in my top 3. She'd probably be somewhere like 5 or 6 options for me. But my main takeaways from Becky Hammon were reading that in her previous head coaching interviews, the Spurs were not as complimentary about her in the day-to-day aspects of the league, whether that be load managing, structuring practices, anything like that. So for me with Becky Hammon, she's not a bad candidate, but she would likely need another person off of the list that I have to be on her staff to help her get through an 82-game NBA season as a head coach.
Yeah, so she would need like a A+ assistant to help her with some of that stuff.
Okay. Which I'm not ruling out as a possibility. It's just trying to hire 2 coaches at the same time instead of 1 ultimately isn't what I'm looking for.
Usually the coaches that have like those kind of people are like a Doc Rivers, he has a Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell's like an A+ assistant. Too,
right. Like a name that I would throw out there would be like Scott Brooks.
Yeah.
He's been an assistant and a head coach.
Yep.
Dave Yeager has been both.
Yep.
Jerry Stackhouse, I think, would be a better head coach. Jerry Stackhouse would probably be my number 4 option.
I like Jerry. Jerry'd be an interesting hire.
James Borrego has the San Antonio connection. That would actually be an interesting pairing with Becky Hammon. But ultimately, she's not on my list. Wallace said maybe the new coach will actually run an offense and set screens for Middleton and stop making him have to go one-on-one for his great shot, especially with his knees not 100%. I agree with that. And I also want to see more Giannis and Chris pick and roll because it's unstoppable.
See, I was going to say, to counter that. I love the Giannis Chris pick and roll, and I agree with you. It's our best option. But the reason that Chris ends up one-on-one all the time is because we do run the pick and roll with him and Giannis.
Yeah.
So then he ends up getting that switch. Where if you run a pick and roll with Drew and Giannis, and Drew is perfectly capable of running the pick and roll, and you have Chris coming off, a screen, back door or something like that, like he could get wide open and that could work.
This transitions perfectly into my first candidate. My first candidate, some people might not even recognize the name. Probably won't until I tell you who he is. Sergio Scariolo.
All right, scoliosis. Let me hear about you.
He is the Spain national team coach. He has been that since the late 2000s. He's been the head coach of the guy of the Spain teams that gave the U.S. runs for their money in the Olympics. He's also won the Eurobasket championship 4 times. And here we go. Pick and roll, Wallace, you're going to like this. He runs a layer of concepts offensively, all variations on a type of pick and roll system that he designed called the Spanish pick and roll. Now, basically what this is you start with a 5-man setting a screen for your point guard. And then you have a 2-guard starting on the block, setting an up screen for the 5-man. So it's a screen-the-screener action. Mm-hmm. And then you're looking to either get a roll from the 5-man and basically get a wide open alley-oop, which with Giannis on our team sounds amazing.
Yeah, right.
You're looking at the 2-man. If his guy drops back to guard that big man, you're looking at a wide open shot from the top of the key. And then you have 2 shooters on the outside on the wings. Now, Mike D'Antoni's Houston Rockets ran this when James Harden won his MVP. They ran this with such crazy efficiency. Like with James Harden, Eric Gordon, they ran it with Ryan Anderson. They ran it with Nene. Like he had like a career resurgence running this type of offense. It can basically be run with any personnel.
Really? Huh.
So when we're talking offensive creativity, Sergio Scariolo got like an A+ with 4 exclamation marks for me.
Okay.
So
I'm starting to see Chris wide open for 3 a lot.
Oh man, dude. And this is you can get Pat open, you can get Grayson open, you can have those guys out on the wings. I mean, if Jay Crowder's willing to come back, you can use him as that 5-man. Oh.
Yeah.
Dude, or you run Giannis as that 5-man, you have him roll to the basket, getting a down screen or an up screen from a small guy. Dude, there's so many. He's got like 10 variations of this. Wallace is getting to my next thing, who he coaches for now. He's actually been coaching since 1989. So he's an idea of, if you're looking at a win now coach, because he is 61 years old.
Oh, shit.
So if you're looking at a guy who's going to coach you for 3-4 years, this might be the guy. So he was in Europe from 1989 until 2018. Then he became part of Nick Nurse's staff from 2018 to 2021. So he was part of their staff when they won the championship. So if you like Nick Nurse, an alternative might be Sergio Scariolo, his former assistant.
I think you just got Wallace on board.
He is back in Spain now. To answer your question, Wallace, Don asked, is he a leader? Okay. So I'm gonna read you this. This is from last summer's Eurobasket tournament. Emmett Ryan of ballineurope.com wrote, I never gave Spain a chance. Spain would not only go on to win the whole tournament, but do so while innovating repeatedly. That innovating repeatedly stood out to me because that means they're making adjustments. Now, there were several games in the 2022 Eurobasket tournament where adjustments were mentioned. The massive adjustments that he made against France in the championship of the Eurobasket tournament, every time France was mounting a comeback, he would change make the adjustments to change it. He was, in his 3 years of assistant in Toronto, he was described as a sponge, basically just looking for more ways to innovate his offense. And in the Eurobasket tournament, he masterfully used the Hernan Gomez brothers. That's Willie and Juancho Hernan Gomez. I would happily take either one of them on the Bucks.
True.
Both super athletic big men. Juancho was actually the guy who starred in the Adam Sandler movie Hustle.
Yep.
So
good movie, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, it's on Netflix.
He'll say Chris Middleton's in it for like a minute.
Yeah.
But I would easily take either of those guys on the Bucks. Those two are both just like hustle energy guys that are big and athletic. So some of the quotes from him, this was in an interview that he did, was you have to be able to share with teammates, share the ball. Second, you have to share the will to play defense. These two principles are non-negotiable. All the rest, you can have more flexibility.
Okay.
So for me, I mean, outside of not having NBA head coaching experience, he's coached NBA players. Just done it with the Spain national team.
And I mean, he was an assistant on the Raptors, so he understands how to.
He's had a cup of tea in the NBA, so he's seen how it works, and he aided Nick Nurse in his championship season. And that Spanish pick and roll, seriously, just look up Spanish pick and roll, watch Houston run it, and just score a shit ton of points, just constantly scoring.
You know, the thing about the Bucks roster, if Middleton comes back, is you can have any of them play that James Harden role because Giannis's passing is underrated, his playmaking is underrated. We all think it.
Those were the years that James Harden led the NBA in assists, or was near the top of the NBA in assists, was when they were running that Spanish pick and roll.
And I'm sure he brought it to Philly with him under Doc right now with Embiid. I'm sure he brought that with him.
I was saying now he's a coaching advisor in New Orleans, actually. Mike D'Antoni was on my list. He probably wouldn't have made my top 10, but I did look him up.
No, I'm good on D'Antoni. I've seen enough of him not playing any defense.
Yeah,
I mean, Giannis in that offense would be filthy. That 8 seconds or less offense, he'd be filthy.
Yeah, the 7 seconds or less.
7 seconds.
Phoenix Suns offense. Yeah, that would be fun. But yeah, it relies on that's a lot of 3-pointers. I think the Bucks shoot a lot of threes now.
Man.
All right, give me your number 2 head coach candidate.
All right, my number 2 is a familiar name here in Milwaukee. His name's been floating around for a while now in the league. His name is Charles Lee. He started his coaching career in 2012 at Bucknell, where he actually played his college basketball 2012, 2014. He was the Patriot League MVP in 2006, and he was a 2-time tourney MVP in the Patriot League in 05 and 06. So he knows how to play basketball. He also knows how to coach it pretty good too. He was on our championship team, so he knows what he's doing. He got into the NBA in 2014, between 2018 under Bud with the Hawks. So he's been in Coach Bud's system for a while. Obviously, he came over to Milwaukee in 2018. And the thing that I really, really like about Charles Lee is that he's only 38. And, you know, you show I was glad that you said Sergio's name, because I was like, that's one of the reasons I like Charles is he's young. So he can kind of establish himself in Milwaukee. And I think that he would have a higher emphasis on coaching up the young players because he's going to want to, you know, stretch out his tenure as long as possible as well.
Longevity.
So, yeah, longevity, that's the word. That thing was not coming out of my mouth, man. But he knows the Bucks roster. So that's one thing that is a major key for him. He knows the owners. He knows Giannis. And I think he's a guy that immediately off my attributes would get the respect of the locker room. He understands the culture because he's been in it. He helped create it, really. And I think that he would play a more aggressive style of defense. I'm not sure who's the one that really, you know, calls the shots on Brook playing that, but I think that he would really make an emphasis to get another athletic big off the bench. I think that's been a problem for the Bucks for a few years here. Get a more athletic 5-man off the bench. So, like, if Brook gets tired, you come in, you switch the defensive scheme, and you push up on people. I'm not going to give my thoughts on the game. I said I'm not going to do that until we do free agency. It's just sitting right there. I'm just waiting to talk about it. I do think that Charles Lee would be fantastic. And he has interviewed for the Pistons and the Raptors job, I believe, right, this offseason. So,
and he interviewed for I think he interviewed for the New Orleans job last year.
Yeah, I think
And
that's
I
what it
want to
was.
say he interviewed for Washington because I know Darvin Ham interviewed for the Washington job as well.
I didn't see Charles Lee for Washington, but I know Darvin Ham interviewed for Washington. But
I
yeah,
think
I know for sure.
Charles Lee might have interviewed for the Atlanta interim position before they hired Quinn Snyder.
Damn, this year
I
I didn't see that. Wow. Okay.
I really thought so.
He's a hot commodity, man. He's young, he's up and coming. He's gonna be the guy pretty damn soon here for somebody, and I would really hate for the Bucks to lose him. Um, I think that there's a combination of a couple things going on. One, the Bucks saw that Bud's system wasn't working anymore, and they don't want to waste Giannis's legacy, right? Don't want to waste his prime. And by the way, his prime just started. For all the
Right.
people that are like, we're wasting Giannis's prime, it just started. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they say NBA prime starts at 28. He's literally 28. Two, I think that maybe they fired Bud as the scapegoat. You know, blame everything on him, not blame anything on injuries or anything like that. And three, I think maybe they see how popular Charles Lee's name's getting and they don't want to lose him. So maybe they got rid of Bud and they want to keep in-house Charles Lee and just promote him. I don't know how you feel about that, but
Charles Lee interviewed for Charlotte's job last year.
Charlotte, okay.
Yes. The Lakers requested permission to interview him before they hired Darvin Ham.
Oh my God.
New Orleans did interview him for their assistant job last year as well.
Okay.
So he's interviewed for a ton of head coaching jobs in the last 2 years. Yeah. And I said this to you when you picked Charles Lee. He's going to be a head coach in 2023.
Yeah, I think so too.
Whether it's with the Bucks or not remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. But I do think he's a candidate for the job and potentially a deserving one. So, all right, you ready for my number 2? This is going to be a name you might recognize the last name.
Okay.
And I'll give you a crisp high five if you recognize where it's from. But my number 2 is Jay Larranaga.
Is that his son?
His dad, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm with it. Yeah, I got you.
Any bells? You know where his dad coaches?
Miami, right?
Yeah, good job. Crisp high five when I see you.
May 22nd, American Family Field.
Yes. So Jay Larranaga is my number 2 coaching candidate. He's been an 11-year assistant. He spent 9 years with Boston, and he's been with the Clippers for the last 2. He did interview for the New York Knicks head coaching job before Tom Thibodeau got it. As a G League head coach, he had a 60-40 record. He blends offensive creativity and defensive prowess. So that stood out to me with Jay Larranaga. He's shown attention to detail at each step of his career. This is a quote from him, and this makes me want him on the Bucks, provided the Bucks can find a way to get younger, at least a little bit. The best half-court offense in the league last year was not as good as the least efficient transition offense.
Jesus.
Super high importance on running the fast break through all 4 quarters. That's a super important sticking point with Larranaga. And he brought this up when talking about the old San Antonio Spurs team. The dynasty basically that they had built was they didn't change their pace through 4 quarters. They kept the same pace all 4 quarters, and by the time the 4th quarter rolled around, when their opponent was out of gas, San Antonio just kept going.
Yeah.
And they won a shit ton of championships by doing it.
They won 5 of them damn things.
So what he said was you play at a pace where you can take advantage of opponent mistakes. He also saw great value in transition defense. That's something the Bucks have struggled with at times. It's transition defense. It hurt them in the Miami series very recently.
Yeah.
So for him to put an emphasis on that was important to me. He preaches multiple efforts on both ends and holding guys accountable to play their best. He did an interview with all right, give me a second to make sure I pronounce this right. Noah Kageyama. This guy's a doctor. He runs a performance podcast, basically. Now, what he said on this podcast was that winning habits lead to success in the NBA. You know who else talks about building good habits all the time?
Giannis.
All the time. Giannis talks about building good habits all the time.
Literally his favorite quote.
Damn near every interview Giannis does, he talks about building good habits.
True.
Jay Larranaga is the same way. Now, this was a performance thing, and this stood out just kind of because of the way that we do the show as far as mindset things go. But in his playing career, he changed his mindset from worrying about missing shots to having the opportunity to make plays. I just like that mindset aspect of it. So in his 11 years, he's helped coach teams that play good offense and good defense. They rebound well, decent at controlling the turnovers, shoot free throws well. He's been parts of good cultures. Clippers a little bit questionable as of late, but obviously Boston's got a very, very strong culture going.
True.
And he's adaptable. So Jay Larranaga is my number 2.
That was a good choice. See, so after me and Tyler do rankings, I always look up his guys, and then I do research on his guys as well. Both of your 2s make sense. I like them both. Thank you very much. I appreciate you appreciating our hard work. So I'm going to go to my number 1 guy, and for me, this feels like a no-brainer if he's available. I'm not going to lie to you. It feels like a no-brainer. His name is Sam Cassell. He played in Milwaukee. We all remember him. I'm just going to go over a little bit of his playing career real quick. I looked into their playing careers because I think that's important to translate. And it's not always important, but, when you have a guy like Sam Cassell, and some people forget, Sam Cassell was a goddamn bucket, dude. Like, he was a good player for a long time.
He was really good in Houston, actually, before he even got to Milwaukee.
Yeah. He played in the NBA from 93 to 2009. So pretty good chunk of our lives when we first got started. He won 3 total titles, 2 with the Rockets when they won with Olajuwon. And then he got 1 with Boston when they got their 1 in 2008. He helped the Milwaukee Bucks in 2001 make the conference finals. And he helped the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2004 make the conference finals. Their only time they made the conference championship in their history. He also helped the Clippers win their first ever playoff series. Ever. So this man is everywhere making history, winning titles, helping the Bucks, get to the conference championship. They should have won. They got cheated. We're not going to talk about that right now.
So it sounds like he's been with Doc Rivers for a long time.
Yeah, man. He has.
Basically since 2008 as a player, and then with the Clippers as an assistant, and now in Philadelphia as an assistant.
Well, he started coaching with the Wizards in 2009 to 2014. And John Wall was quoted. He credited Cassell for helping him develop leadership and to become one of the premier point guards in the NBA before he had injuries. John Wall gave all credit to Sam Cassell.
I like it.
I like that too. So obviously when he got there in 2009, they drafted John Wall in 2010. So right away he got started on John Wall's leadership and just grinding him and making him into the star that he was. Sad the fall off that John Wall had when I started.
I know. He was so fun to watch.
He was like, when we were in high school, bro, he was like the first guy that had a chance to be a superstar when we were those young teenage kids. Like the John Wall,
I remember.
Awesome. Calipari days when they first got started in Kentucky.
He was dunking on everybody in his first couple of years in the NBA.
Him and DeMarcus Cousins were a problem, man. That was nuts. But yeah, like you said, then he went to the Clippers from 2014 to 2020 under Doc Rivers, and now he's been with the 76ers ever since. And everything I read, every article I read, I went on like 7-8 freaking articles and websites, and I was reading about Sam Cassell, and I was texting you, and I was like, dude, Sam Cassell's the pick. He's the guy. Everybody's saying that he's overdue for a head coaching job. He should have had a head coaching job years ago. People are saying he's the best assistant in the league. These are guys that float around the NBA, so I'm just going to trust their opinion and just run with it. So a guy that averaged 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 6 assists, and like I said, he knows how to fucking win. And if we're in win now mode, I'm on board.
So I'm going to contest your point about being the best assistant in the league because my number 1 guy is also a current assistant. Oh. And I want to reference a a couple sentences that were written on a site called Basketball Index, and I really like this sentence or these couple sentences.
Thank you.
And I'm not gonna lie, it affected my opinion a little bit. It didn't turn me off of any of the guys that I ultimately went with, but what Basketball Index said was the pool of retreads is full of coaches for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
There's a relative scarcity of strong NBA coaches. You can't just shuffle chairs forever.
That's fair.
So that, in my mind, kind of turned me off of Nick Nurse a little more. Frank Vogel, Mike D'Antoni, it turned me off of some of those guys that have done it and then kind of fizzled out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for a guy who kind of, maybe even taps into the analytics a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for a guy who's going to kind of innovate as the league continues to grow and change. That's why I brought up being adaptable.
True.
That being said, my number one guy has some very strong endorsements. And I'm just going to take a drink of my Powerade for dramatic effect.
Oh, boy.
My number one pick is Jordi Fernandez. He was an assistant in Denver, and he is Mike Brown's current lead assistant in Sacramento. Okay. He is in the mix in the Toronto jobs. He was in the mix for the Atlanta job when they fired Nate McMillan. So this is what Mike Malone had to say about him. He said he will be a head coach in this league. And then Mike Brown said, Jordi is a fantastic human being and a fantastic coach. He will be a head coach in this league someday. He is ready for it right now. That's what the current coach of the year said about his lead assistant.
That's strong words.
So this was last year's summer league. So the summer of 2022, Keegan Murray shows up for their first summer league game. First play of the first game, he asks Keegan Murray where he likes the ball. He says the left corner. Jordi Fernandez draws a play up to get Keegan Murray a shot in the left corner. First play, first game, gets to the left corner, drains a three.
Oh, I like that,
First
bro.
play.
I like that.
First play, draws up a play just on the spot.
Okay.
That being said, he is a defensive-minded coach. Domantas Sabonis says he pays attention to all defensive details. He is a guy that in the pick and roll, he likes to chase around the screens. And over the last quarter of the season, Sacramento was top 10 defensively.
Really? Huh.
Offensively, he likes to run high pace. Obviously, Sacramento ran a crazy high pace because they had De'Aaron Fox. So why would you not run high pace? And Malik Monk, who's not a slouch offensively.
Or slow.
Right. They like to score off of turnovers, and they like to use the dribble handoff with their big men. Oof. So that's something where if the Bucks decide they want to keep Brook Lopez around, like that could be a potential fit. Mm-hmm. Last year's Sacramento Kings had the highest offensive efficiency in NBA history.
Holy shit. I did not know that. Okay.
So getting a guy who's in an offensive culture, but is a defensive mind, checks that box. Mm-hmm. The Kings and the Nuggets, when he's been with them, were good rebounding teams, didn't turn the ball over. They made their free throws. They have great culture. If you watched any videos of what Sacramento has done with their coaching staff this year, and I've seen videos of like the coaching staff letting know that Mike Brown was the coach of the month a couple times. The culture there that they've changed in just the last year, it's bigger difference than night and day.
Oh yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
It's like a massive difference in culture in Sacramento from last year to this year.
Man.
And they haven't really changed any players. Their core is the same.
It's almost like mental health matters, Tyler. That's
almost.
All I'm going to
say. And he's adaptable. Sacramento adapted. They do the dribble handoffs in the half court. They run a lot of high pace offense, score off turnovers. I mean, he has the endorsements of Mike Malone and Mike Brown, 2 coaches of the year. I think Jordy Fernandez is the guy. I think he might be the best assistant in the NBA.
I'm not disagreeing with you, man. It's up for debate, though. That's all I'm saying.
It's definitely up for debate because there's tons of them out there. Like Charles Lee, you could put in debate.
Yeah.
I looked up a bunch of current assistants. James Borrego just kind of missed the cut for me. Jaron Collins is a guy who's interviewing for the Detroit job. He's an assistant in New Orleans right now. Dave Yeager is currently an assistant with Philadelphia. He just missed the cut for me. So, I mean, there's tons of assistants out there that are going to be deserving of jobs. So just before we close it out, recap me your 3 candidates.
So my number 3 was Mark Jackson. My number 2 was Charles Lee. And my number 1 was Sam Cassell.
All righty. My number 3 was Sergio Scariolo. My number 2, Jay Larranaga. And my number 1, Jordy Fernandez. Whatever it ends up being for the Bucks' next head coach, it's not going to be anytime soon. I don't expect it probably until the middle of June, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I don't want them to rush it. So I love in the quote from Horst, he said, "We're not rushing this process." Yeah. They know they have to get this right, and this is going to be important. There's going to be conversations had with the correct people. I believe every GM should be talking to their stars, whatever sport you're in. And in basketball, it's a lot easier because you don't have as many players. But I think they should be doing that,
especially ones that have their heads on straight. Like the guys
I would say we have.
I mean,
we have a couple of those on our roster. I would say.
Yeah.
It's an important summer for the Bucks.
It really is. All right. Well, I appreciate your insight. I think you had some good candidates there. I appreciate people throwing comments in here and watching with us. Definitely going to be, like you said, definitely going to be an interesting next month and a half or so, because I do think they're going to want to get the head coaching replacement in before free agency starts. So
real quick, I like seeing some new faces, some new names in the comments. We will share when we're going to be talking some big Bucks topics. If you guys want to come join us, we usually go live on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. So
today was a special one just to talk about the Bucks head coach.
Yeah, we had some time today. We put our research together, and I had to do my research, put it together last night. Between last night and a combination of winning a flag football game with my 10-year-old stepson. So Tyler's over there just grinding for everybody.
I did enough writing I did almost all of these notes this morning, and I started here, there. I mean.
So we're not half-assing it over here, people. We're putting in the work.
Damn sure.
we're the type of people that want to earn the respect. So come talk with us, come discuss with us. We want to do it live so we can answer you guys' questions right away.
Yep.
If you weren't here earlier, you saw us, having a conversation basically with Wallace. I'm not against any ideas from Wallace. No, I just need his shorts, Isaac. I just need his shorts. I would like to say the Lakers are playing good right now, and that doesn't make me happy, by the way. Anyways, I hope you have a good night, buddy. And like I said, come join us on Wednesdays.
Yes, I'll see you back on Wednesday.
All right.